Welcome back to Faculty Spotlights. I am Dr. Anna Belmonte, the Division Chair for Forensic Psychology at the Chicago School. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Joe Faustino, who is a faculty member at the Anaheim campus in our Department of Forensic Psychology. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Faustino.
Welcome. Good morning.
Awesome. Okay, so can you start off with just sharing a bit about your background and then what brought you to the Chicago School?
Awesome. Yes, sure. Yes, my name is Dr. Joselito Faustino. I am an alumni of the Chicago School of Professional Psychology who graduated in 1998 from the main campus in Chicago with both a master's and a PsyD. After graduating, just a little bit about myself. After graduation, I worked directly uh, then retired from the Federal Bureau of Prisons in Ohio and in California after 20 years of government service. I also worked for two psychiatric hospitals, both inpatient and outpatient, for over 7 years. And then I taught at different universities, about 4 universities. And what led me to the Chicago School of Professional Psychology is I wanted to give back to our students for both the master's and the PsyD program after hearing that we now have campuses in Southern California. So that was a great deal for me to bring back my experiences and teach for the school. And now I have been with the Chicago School in Anaheim for the last 3 years.
Amazing. Um, and so talk to us a little bit about what areas of teaching or research or practice or all the above are you most passionate about?
Well, I have a couple of sections that I'm currently focusing at this time. So that's a great question. So I'm currently involved in research in both borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder for the last, I'd say, about 10 years. And I teach on and off on lectures to different agencies offering CEUs also for that. But also, I've included also and have been able to tie in obsessive-compulsive disorder as tied to borderline and narcissistic personality, which has a lot of direct correlation to it. So I think it's important to recognize research and other research areas, especially in the field of forensic psychology, because we deal with a variety of clients with these clinical syndromes and personality disorders in both inpatient and outpatient settings, in prisons and jails, hospitals, and community agencies. So I also specialize, which a lot of people don't know, I also specialize in dealing with sex offenders or pedophilic behaviors and disorders. My clinical experiences in the prison and jail system and also in the psych hospitals allowed me to work closely with these individuals to gain insight into the inner workings of their dysfunctional cognitions, emotions, and behavior, on the causation and treatment of these disorders as well. So these individuals are typically what society considers as one of the most difficult special populations that we have because the society makes them social pariahs in our society. Even within the prison setting, they're considered outcasts, looked down upon by other inmates. So I work closely with these individuals because a lot of the time nobody wants to work with these individuals. So I ended up working with them in both individual and group therapy for the last 20 in both the prison and psych hospital settings.
Fascinating. I think what you said at the very beginning in terms of the intersection of all these different disorders, overlapping disorders, but also how the interplay between these severe mental illnesses and involvement in the justice system or incarceration is particularly interesting. And I think that that's what we really strive, right, to teach our students about is, everyday people are going to have these disorders, but then you throw this added layer of being involved in the justice system or being incarcerated or jailed. There's a real complexity to the
Mhm.
cases that we work with because of that.
Exactly.
So, tell me a little bit about how you see your work impacting students and the community.
Great question again. So forensic psychology, and again, our role as forensic psychologists, we are considered the hidden gem in the general psychology field. So we're the one who performs such arduous tasks where most other psychologists stay in private practice and in group practices and in community settings and all of these things. Our job inserts us in positions where we gain additional experiences in specialized field that the community doesn't really expect us to know. So for
Mhm.
example, as forensic and correctional psychologist in a prison setting, I was trained in hostage negotiation skills and also individual management, crisis management, and like family crises. Because when we deal with people who are taken hostage, we also have to deal with families
Ah,
that are suffering out there. So we're both involved in those management. We also do a lot of research on specialized field, like I said, in sex offender programs and research, which I was
mhm,
involved with. And also, a lot of the communities and even agencies don't know this, but we are, we work with inner workings with communities like community leaders and
mhm,
politicians and educating the community on what we do to protect the community. And a lot of the time, the communities are fearful that like, oh, we're going to have escapes and how are we protecting our community, and we have to explain that. So I found myself working with wardens and assistant wardens and captains and going to communities and meeting with community leaders at different places, like even meeting with congressmen and senators, so that we know the roles that we play. And also, we entertain visits from judges and prosecutors and attorneys and educating them on what our role is in the court evaluation system and the criminal justice system as well. But at the same time, we also have to deal with those management of severe pathology such as schizophrenia and trauma and PTSD, anxiety, but most typically aggressive behaviors, including interpersonal and domestic violence, as well as suicidal and homicidal behavior on a regular basis. So, a typical psychologist out there, unlike a forensic psychologist, may not understand that we're put in the middle of all of these crises literally on a more consistent basis. And we have to deal with this. So the stressors are high but manageable. But the thing about this is what's worth dealing with and working in this situation is that it gives such a varied experience, such an in-depth
mm,
experience on what we really do, not just to protect the community, but also what forensic psychologists really do
mm.
in this field.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, that's, one of those, like, little known things, I think, when students maybe start programs like ours or even early career psychologists or, clinicians, is how much education that we do and how that is a unique part of our role as specialty trained psychologists in forensic psychology, or I'm sorry, clinicians also, not just psychologists, but having that specialized knowledge is really what we need to be able to relay back to the community at large, because the knowledge that we have, that average person off the street, maybe they've watched CSI or Law and Order
Hmm. Hmm.
SVU, right, or as or whatever, those inside prison shows,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff, but the real factual knowledge of our field, what the law is, what policies are, how our clients are affected, all of that sort of stuff is real specialized knowledge that we have. And so I do think that's one of the things our program and our faculty do really well, is really imparting that duty and that onto our
Hmm.
students, that's I don't want to say the burden because it's not a burden, but that's the duty we have to the
Yeah.
general public with our specialized knowledge.
Yes, exactly. That's correct.
And so kind of like, this kind of goes off what we were just talking about actually, but what do you think makes our program unique or especially valuable for students?
Forensic psychology, the way I see it, the way a lot of other specialties don't see us, but it's actually a specialty and a gift
Mhm,
within the main body of psychology. Our forensic psychology program and the Chicago School prepares our student, both not just in a master's, but the Darkle PsyD program
mhm,
to work in forensic and correctional field. But a lot of our understanding also, just like you said, has to deal with law, policies, the court systems, dealing with different disciplines like medical and social work and case management and all of these other disciplines, probation and all of these things. And we're part of that integral process that have to determine, like say, for example, writing a forensic evaluation that this person is not ready to go out to society yet.
mhm,
Having to put him in special programs rather than releasing him back to society. working with probation office or parole system, all of these other things that a lot of the normal, regular psychologists out there, like clinical psychologists, may not be able to do. And that gives us that expertise, which to me it's very, experiential, but also very gratifying. And not a lot of doctoral students, or even people in the field want to work with these special population, like inmates. When you hear the word inmates, you're like, oh my God, I don't want to work with these people. They're difficult, they're aggressive and violent. But we have to work with that because not a lot of people want to work with these people. And these people are just like any other human beings. They have depressive issues and relationship problems and suicidality and aggression that they can't control. So what brings us our specialty into the field, into our classrooms, is our instructors have these vast experiences, including myself and you, in the field of criminal justice, having to not just study psychology but the law. What are the California penal codes, what are some of these sex offender new laws that's coming about in the next 2 years or so. And we have to be knowledgeable about that because that's kind of what our job really is, with the courts and public opinions and attorneys and all of these other disciplines that we have to work with. So that makes us specialize within a general specialized field.
I agree. I think, our program really teaching the specialization and the generalization of psychology and forensic psychology is so valuable. And yeah, and like, to your point, it offers this avenue for this specialized knowledge that is really important for these especially vulnerable groups. And I think it's we have such a great group of students who come to our programs because of that and their interest and really wanting to get into those more nuanced and more challenging issues. Like, yeah, how do you make a tough decision about, you're talking to somebody in front of you, but you're going to maybe have to make an opinion or a decision or a
Mhm.
recommendation that's really not something they would truly want. But as forensic clinicians and practitioners, we're trained to operate that way, and we can still learn and have empathy while doing so, right?
Yes. If I might add one more thing
Yeah.
to this, our forensic program in the Chicago School, it gives the students a well-rounded
Yes.
experience working in the practicum sites and internships, working with our director of clinical training and also other licensed clinical psychologists and supervisors in the field, and prepares them to work in the postdoc positions as well. So it's not just like, you get your degree and you're done with it. No, we prepare them so that, for the future, careers that they're going to have. And a lot of our students tells us so in classrooms and, in during advisement that they want to work in the field. They want to do what we do. And that motivates us further as instructors. So,
Yeah, that's a great point too, because you and me have that in common that we're both alums of the Chicago School. We have quite a number of our own faculty in our division who are alums of the Chicago School, full-time faculty members, and even more in our ranks as adjunct faculty members. And I do think that that's something special and unique that, we have people who enjoyed their experience so much as a student that they want to give back to the students that come after them, right? And bring that knowledge that they left our school and then they went out into the world and then bring that knowledge back to the
yeah,
students. I think it's an incredible thing that we have to offer.
definitely. Yes.
All right. Well, last but not least, what advice would you give to current students who are going to be entering our field shortly, or prospective students who might be going back and forth between the decision of pursuing this degree?
Yes, for our current and prospective students, I mean, we normally, or I normally tell them, like prepare yourself to work with the criminal justice system, which a lot of them may not have any idea at this time, especially if they're beginning the program. Working in the court systems, in jails and prisons, a lot of them have never imagined, like you said, we're, watching CSI and watching movies and so forth. This is what we do and so forth. But that's a small fraction of what we really do until you experience what working in the field really is about. A lot of them cannot imagine working in probation or parole office, working with other disciplines. The forensic psychology field, especially working with new psychologists, incoming psychologists, having to work with the special population, they may have an idea what a general inmate may look like, but when you have these subcategories, you have the pedophiles, the sex offenders, you have, the terrorist, which I dealt
Mhm.
with a lot, domestic and international terrorist. having language barriers. You have these other special populations, the gangs, multi-layered gang memberships and affiliations and so forth, or even just, white collar crimes, working with incarcerated judges and lawyers and doctors and all of that. That
Hmm.
gives you a new insight and gives the learning experience to these students that they have to work with a a variety of occupations as well. And not just the major psychological disorders, but we want them to experience the multitude of crisis interventions. A lot of them are shock in the beginning when we have interns and practicing students working in the field, and then they get used to it to say, you know what, you're being called for suicide crisis every day. That
Hmm.
doesn't happen in the private industry. So every day or every week I have to come in if I'm on call for a month at a time, or 2 weeks at a time, nonstop for 14, 19 days, dealing with suicide crises and all of these things. But it's so worthwhile because saving a life is, one life is, it enhances my own experiences and so forth. But at the same time, it's important to students to recognize and prepare themselves before the program or during their first semester, which I'm doing now, to be mindful cognitively, psychologically, behaviorally, that you're going to be working with such population that is very demanding. Not demanding that you're going to overstress in a way, because we have our own support systems and so forth, but demanding that there's a lot of work to be done on a limited time basis. And at the same time, there's demands from supervisors and the hierarchy of wardens and regional offices and all of these other offices and so forth. And the job still needs to be done. The evaluation still needs to be performed and completed. The reports to the judge's desk, the next day and so forth. So, and the bottom line is this: it's very gratifying to me. I get asked this question all the time, and I have the same response all the time. And the question is, if I could do it all over again, and would I work in the prison system as a forensic psychologist? And my answer is the same. It's a definitely yes, because it's so gratifying that gave me the experience of having to work with such a special population, and with the system that exists at this time, which continues to improve,
Hmm.
but it gives us the special role of a forensic psychologist, which to me, the private industry probably can never give me in the same caliber. So,
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from you is something that I also give advice to students about is you need to have a level of being okay with being flexible, right? Flexibility, like there are so many
yeah,
outside pressures on this job, the systems that we would work within, whether it be a court system, a jail, or even just in a hospital setting or things like that. There's a lot of systems that, while we can try to affect change in some way, change is slow moving and we might not always feel the direct ripple effects of said change. But as somebody in the moment, being flexible and kind of realizing that you may not
mhm,
have control over what you see in a day or do in a day is really important. But I
it
think that
is.
that's also what draws people to this position, to this field rather, because I think, yeah, I hear from prospective students or graduates even all the time that they're like, I don't want to just sit, in a desk
Mhm.
chair all day or sit in doing 50 minutes of therapy, every hour on the hour
Right.
sort of thing. And you really get a variety of things within this
Oh,
field.
yes. Yes, and one last thing I just want to add. It's like I
Yeah.
tell the students this all the time in every class, that the fraction of therapy compared to the private practice is a fraction.
Mhm.
We're going to meetings, we're going to supervision, we're doing ground round presentation, we're
Yeah.
doing a rounds every day, like 6 units, and then I have to do the shoe rounds. And then I'm meeting with a warden, explaining why this person is suicidal or why this person needs to be released. I mean, that's like a 20-hour day compressed to an 8 hours.
Yep.
So a lot of people don't understand. It's like, yeah, it's busy, but but it makes the days go so much faster. But it's only 40 hours a week. So, so to me, it's like, yeah, I mean, week is done. Okay, time for a vacation, or a weekend and all that. So to me, it's worthwhile. It's much worthwhile. And I think the student really appreciate what we tell them with our experiences in the classroom, because they know what we went through and they want to go through the same thing. So
Agreed. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Faustino, for sharing your wisdom and your insights. Greatly appreciative of your time.
you're welcome. Thank you for this interview. Much appreciated. Thank you.